Did you know that every hour, 6 organs are sold on the black market worldwide? A shocking statistic that is as gut-wrenching as it is real. This isn't the plot of a dystopian novel or a Hollywood blockbuster. This is the grim reality of the organ trade, a clandestine industry that thrives in the shadows of our global society. Every day, the organ trade operates at an alarming rate, with organs changing hands like mere commodities. It's a market driven by desperation and disparity. On one side, you have individuals, often from impoverished backgrounds, who are so desperate that they're willing to sell parts of themselves to survive. Parts of themselves that, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't dream of parting with. On the other side, you have the wealthy, those privileged enough to afford the exorbitant prices demanded for these organs. These are individuals who see their wealth as a ticket to a longer life, a way to bypass the painfully long waiting lists that can often accompany organ transplants in the medical world. What we have is a grim and shocking reality, an underground market that trades in human life and suffering. It's a market that operates on the fringes of morality and legality, exploiting the desperation of the poor and the fear of the rich. It's a market that, despite the efforts of law enforcement and health organizations worldwide, continues to thrive. It's easy to dismiss the organ trade as a problem for the less fortunate, the desperate, or the morally bankrupt. But the reality is, it's a problem that affects us all. It's a problem that highlights the stark disparities in our global society, the desperate lengths that people will go to survive, and the lengths that others will go to prolong their own lives. Such a terrifying fact makes us question the world we live in. But let's delve deeper into the organ trade. Let's explore the cost of life, the hotspots of the organ trade, the faces behind the trade, and the efforts being made to combat it. Because understanding is the first step to change, and change is what we need to bring an end to this shocking reality. Imagine putting a price tag on a part of your body, a vital organ. It happens, and the numbers might shock you. In the grim world of the black market organ trade, the human body can be broken down into a disturbingly precise monetary value. The prices fluctuate based on supply and demand, but on average, a kidney might fetch around $160,000. The heart, being more complex and vital, could be worth up to $1 million. Livers generally go for nearly $500,000, while a pair of eyeballs might be sold for around $25,000. These prices, however, only reflect the amount that desperate buyers are willing to pay. The sellers, often impoverished individuals selling their organs out of desperation, receive just a fraction of these amounts. For example, a kidney seller might only receive around $5,000 for an organ that will be sold for nearly 32 times that amount. The disparity is stark and unsettling. The middlemen, or organ brokers, pocket the majority of the profits, exploiting both the buyer's desperation for survival and the seller's dire straits. It's a macabre industry fueled by the desperation of some and the greed of others. This dark trade thrives in the shadows, often going unnoticed by authorities due to its clandestine nature. Yet, the transactions are real, and the human cost is immense. Sellers risk their health and lives, often undergoing dangerous procedures in unsanitary conditions. Meanwhile, buyers, driven by the urgency of their situation, are willing to pay exorbitant sums, plunging themselves into debt for a chance at survival. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That the value of life, the worth of our existence, can be quantified in dollars and cents. It's a stark reminder of the disparities that exist in our world, the lengths to which people will go to survive, and the depths to which others will sink to profit. The value of life seems to be measured in dollars and cents, a chilling thought indeed. Certain parts of the world are hotbeds for the organ trade. These are places where poverty, desperation, and exploitation are rife. In our exploration of this clandestine market, we find ourselves drawn to several regions where the organ trade is particularly prevalent. Let's start with parts of Asia. Countries such as India, China, and the Philippines have garnered a reputation for underground organ trade. Why is this, you may ask? The answer lies in a potent mix of factors: crippling poverty, lack of regulation, and a high demand for organs due to widespread health issues like diabetes and heart disease. Here, the organ trade preys on the desperation of the impoverished, offering them a way out of their financial woes, albeit at a great personal cost. Moving westwards, we find ourselves in Africa. In countries like Egypt and Mozambique, organ trafficking is, unfortunately, a thriving business. Again, poverty plays a significant role, but this is compounded by the lack of legal frameworks to regulate organ transplantation. There's also an alarming trend of refugees being targeted, their desperate circumstances making them easy prey for organ traffickers. In Eastern Europe, we see a similar story. Countries like Moldova and Ukraine have seen a surge in organ trafficking, driven largely by economic instability and corruption. Here, the organ trade is often part of a larger criminal enterprise, intertwined with human trafficking and other illicit activities. So, why have these regions become hotspots? The answer is complex and multifaceted. It's not just about poverty and desperation, but also about systemic issues like corruption, lack of regulation, and societal indifference. These factors create a perfect storm for the organ trade to flourish, turning human bodies into commodities in the process. The organ trade is a global issue, exploiting the most vulnerable among us. It's a chilling reminder of the lengths to which some will go to turn a profit, and the lengths others will go to survive. Our next stop will be a closer look at the faces behind this trade. Stay tuned. Who are the people involved in the organ trade? The answer might surprise you. When we pull back the curtain on the organ trade, we see a spectrum of people caught up in its web. This is not just a story of villains and victims, but a human drama where desperation meets opportunity. At one end of the spectrum, we have the sellers. Often these are individuals in dire straits. They might be drowning in debt, living in abject poverty, or struggling to afford life-saving medical treatment for themselves or a loved one. Some are refugees, displaced by conflict or disaster, with few options for survival. For these people, selling an organ can seem like the only way out. In contrast, at the other end of the spectrum, we have the buyers. These are often wealthy individuals from developed countries who can afford to pay for an organ. They may be driven by desperation too, facing long waiting lists for organ transplants at home, or battling a life-threatening condition that requires immediate intervention. But the organ trade isn't just about the desperate seller and the wealthy buyer. In the middle, we find the brokers, the middlemen who profit the most from this trade. They may operate in the shadows, but they play a crucial role, connecting sellers and buyers, arranging the logistics, and taking a hefty cut of the money involved. These brokers exploit the desperation of sellers and the urgency of buyers to make a profit. They operate in a legal gray area, often in countries where regulation is lax or non-existent. Their actions raise serious ethical questions as they profit from the desperation of others without bearing any of the physical risks themselves. The organ trade is a complex web of exploitation, where desperation meets opportunity. It's a world where the value of a human life can be measured in dollars and cents, and where the line between victim and perpetrator can sometimes blur. So who are the people involved in the organ trade? They could be anyone, and they could be anywhere. The organ trade is a complex web of exploitation where desperation meets opportunity. The organ trade is a horrifying reality, but it's not a hopeless one. There are ways to combat this illicit market. The first step in this fight is to improve the legal organ donation systems worldwide. A lack of organs for transplantation is a key driver of this trade, so if we can increase the number of legally donated organs, we can reduce the demand for illegal ones. Many countries have already made strides in this area. Take Spain, for instance. They've implemented an opt-out system where everyone is considered a potential donor unless they choose to opt out. This has led to Spain having one of the highest organ donation rates in the world. Other countries like Australia and the UK have also made similar changes, proving that a more proactive approach to organ donation can make a significant impact. But legal organ donation is just one piece of the puzzle. We also need to provide better support for vulnerable populations. People living in poverty are often the ones selling their organs out of desperation. By improving access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities, we can help these individuals find other means of support that don't involve risking their lives. Last but not least, we need stricter laws and penalties against those who participate in the organ trade. This includes not just the buyers and sellers, but also the middlemen and medical professionals who facilitate these transactions. In many places, the penalties for organ trafficking are minimal, and this lack of deterrence allows the trade to thrive. By enforcing harsher punishments, we can make it clear that organ trade is not a risk worth taking. Every one of us has a role to play in this fight. Whether it's signing up to be an organ donor, advocating for better laws, or simply spreading awareness about the organ trade, we all have the power to make a difference. Change is possible, but it requires awareness, action, and commitment. As we move forward, let's remember that every organ saved through legal means is potentially a life saved from the grasp of the organ trade. Now that you're aware of the grim reality of the organ trade, the question is, what can you do about it? You might feel overwhelmed, but remember, change often starts with a single step. It starts with you. First, educate yourself further. Knowledge is power, and the more you understand about this issue, the more you can help. There are numerous resources available online, including documentaries, articles, and academic studies. Next, support organizations that are actively combating the organ trade. They are the frontline warriors in this battle, and your support, whether financial or through volunteering, can significantly amplify their efforts. Finally, advocate for stronger laws and better systems. Voice your concerns to your local and national representatives. Encourage policies that promote ethical organ donation and discourage illegal organ trade. Remember, every effort counts in the fight against the organ trade. Together, we can make a difference.